Good evening, Niner faithful. Welcome to another episode of Between Two Beards. As always, I'm your host, Rob Schuh, joined by my co-host, Randon McMahon. Randon, how you doing tonight, man?
Good, man. It's been busy. Started a new job this week, so freshly just got home, changed out of the work clothes, and came directly on. So it's been good.
I mean, you're sort of burying the lead there. It's not just a new job. There's a new channel that has developed in this change. And today's your MFing birthday as well. So got to get that out there. Wishing you a happy birthday. I'm sure everyone that is here in the comments is going to wish you a happy birthday as well. Have you had a pleasant birthday so far? Have you had some nice meals? Have you treated yourself accordingly?
Yeah, I didn't want to toot my own horn, so I appreciate that. Throwing it out there. It's today. I knowing that I was going to be on tonight. I got another podcast later. Worked all day long. My brothers treated me this weekend, so it was good. We went to a brewery that's also has like a barbecue joint in the back. So we had nice barbecue sandwiches. Had some flights of beers right before the Super Bowl. Watched the Super Bowl. So yeah, it was good. And then yeah, we launched my channel last night. So Cerberus Sports Talk. I'm big into mythology, so the triple-headed beast there. So I like football, baseball, and hockey. We're going to talk a little basketball as well with some of my boys out here in Texas. So just a little bit of everything. Just have some fun. A nice little platform for me to vent my sports knowledge and sport fandom. When I'm not on Between Two Beards or working for hockey royalty. So yeah, it'll be fun.
I saw, speaking of, we have Waruna has rejoined the channel here, but Waruna was on your channel last night along with Crypto Ryan in the initial episode that was launched. I love the reference of the Hellhound that you have there for the channel, and it represents what you're attempting to do there in branching out into multiple sports. So for those of you watching that want to go see it, all the information to go follow that channel is down below in the description to the video. So you want to expand your horizons, not just Niners content, but exploring some baseball, some hockey, head on over, give it a watch.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, everybody's welcome. So we'll start from the bottom, and hopefully next year I'll say now that I'm here. We'll see.
Yes, that's right. You'll be able to look back to this moment a year from now, 2 years from now, 10 years from now, and say that's where it all started. That's where it all began. And the journey was a long one, let me tell you. Well, let's get into that journey. Let's talk a little. Oh, Luke Luna's excited. Luke Luna came in with the super sticker here. Appreciate that. Luke, good to see you in the comments. And as I predicted, you're getting a lot of birthday wishes in there. Yeah, so that's always nice.
Appreciate it.
It's good to have the recognition. It's good to be loved. Yeah. And it's good to be loved. You got to appreciate it. All right. Let's jump into our topics today. Now, the title of the video is about Trey Lance. We're going to bury that a little bit. It'll come halfway through the program. So if that's why you tuned in, you may have to wait a little bit, but it's going to be there. We're going to get to it. We start with the more pressing news. We start with news that came out today that was a bit of a surprise to me. Perhaps it wouldn't have been if I were a more devout Atlanta Falcons fan, which I am not. Although I do intend on going to Atlanta and seeing my first game in that Mercedes-Benz Stadium this coming year as we play the Atlanta Falcons in an away game. But the news is that they released Dante Fowler, who 49ers fans may remember had some successful years with Jacksonville, some successful years with the Los Angeles Rams, but two less remarkable seasons with the Atlanta Falcons. But he is a speed edge rusher. That's the type of player that he is. Randon, is this someone that you had your eye on as a potential free agent for the San Francisco 49ers? And if so, do you think he's a good fit?
So no, I didn't have my eye on him. I didn't expect him to be released. I think it potentially could be, right. I mean, Kasurk has been the resurrector of careers.
Yes, he has,
and multiple times over. And so it's gonna. I wonder what his prerogative is going to be. Like, he got the bag already. I think it was 3 year, $45 million from the Falcons. So
That's a pretty hefty bag. I mean, not elite level for an edge rusher, but good. I mean, that's good money. That's good cheddar.
Yeah, coming after one season of 11 sacks from the Rams, that's a fairly big contract there.
Yeah.
And so you're looking at, is he wanting to win? Because he's only been on one team. Jacksonville was a little bit better back in that day, but Falcons definitely weren't. So, does he want to be on a winner, or does he want to do something along the lines of getting more money? I mean, he's still in his mid-20s. What is his agent saying? Like, if he wants to, he's still young enough to get a big bag. So Is he going to do a 1-year deal with the Niners or a 2-year deal with the Niners at a lower money total, AAV, I think is what I was looking for. Anyways, just so that way he could be on a dominant defensive line, put up those stats, and then still be around 27 where he gets that 4-year deal where he can get his last penny on his career. Depends on what he wants. But as far as the talent goes, you saw his most impressive year was on the Rams. Obviously, Aaron Donald, one of the best defensive linemen. So if he's a secondary piece opposite Armstead and Bosa, I think that, it could be something that would be definitely something that they should pick the phone up for.
Yes, 1000% yes, as far as picking up the phone and finding out what Dante Fowler is looking for. This is someone, to me, that could be a very good fit. There was a great article about this that I think folks should go read on Niners Nation, written by Jordan Elliott, in which he lays out some of those things that you're talking about there, Randon. Like, what is Dante Fowler's mindset going into this free agency period? Because he has proven himself to be capable of generating pretty consistent numbers when he is a piece of a dominant defensive line. When he's intended to be the guy, the star, as he was in Atlanta on a subpar defense, he's not been able to live up to expectations there. And so he has a choice to make. And the 49ers may present themselves as a very good-looking option for Dante, in that he could take a page out of Arden Key's book, say to himself, Chris Kocurek is the best defensive line coach in the NFL. I don't think I'm speaking in hyperbole there. I believe that's actually a fact.
Agreed.
And he has resurrected the careers of many folks, most recently being Arden Key. And Arden Key came in, did the 1-year deal, and now is about to get that bag. So does Dante Fowler want to come to the San Francisco 49ers on a reduced 1-year deal, outperform what he did in Atlanta the last couple of seasons, and then time it such that he's coming back into free agency while the cap is exploding in 2023, and then he can get himself that monster multi-year deal? To me, it sets up as a potential win-win on both sides. The Niners get back that speed edge rusher like a D Ford type, and he gets the chance to prove his worth and come back into free agency 1 year later.
Yeah, you gotta expect Key would be a guy that would probably go out and try to get some money, right? He signed a 1-year deal after his rookie deal. I fully expect them to probably sign DJ Jones, in my opinion. But yes. Then, what are they going to do with D Ford? Ebukam was plateauing towards the end of this, or not plateauing, but he was getting better towards the end of the season. Do they believe he's the answer? But still, I think he signed a 2-year deal last year, so that would be right. 1 year left on it. And so, maybe the Niners go, hey, like let's throw a bunch of darts. If Fowler's cheap enough, let's throw a bunch of darts and just keep that line hungry. And it would definitely be an interesting piece. You look at these athletes have a fair amount of pride. And when you're playing for a team that doesn't really have an identity like the Falcons did this last year, sometimes it's hard to get up. I mean, as much as you want to say to an athlete, hey, that's your responsibility because that's your job. Everybody else who has 9 to 5, some days are easier to go to work than others. And when you're losing all the time and constantly on defense, constantly getting blown out, it might be a mental thing towards the end of the year to do that. And so being on a winning culture, being in a locker room that's, supposed to be one of the best in the NFL, to get your mind right with one of the best coaches for defensive line in the NFL, this could resurrect his career. Like I said, he could go and get that money when the cap raises, and he gets to play for a winning team, good locker room. He doesn't have to, Bosa's over there, so he doesn't have to be the guy. He can just focus on him. He doesn't have to, and I think it's a good situation for him. But is he saying like I'm still elite and I deserve money, or is he saying like I need to prove myself again? This would be what it is.
Yeah, and that's the question mark, right? And that's the question that only he can answer as to what he's looking for. It seems to set up perfectly. It seems to be a great destination for him to come and prove his worth, so that, to your point, the last contract he gets before he crests that over the hill moniker within the NFL is a decent one? Or does he just say, hey, I want a multi-year deal because that's what I feel I deserve. I don't want to go into the prove it camp. But the 49ers do have that track record of providing the proof for people. You look back to what they were able to do in 2020 with Kerry Hyder, and then again with Arden Key. As you would expect, Arden Key is about to get a multi-year deal unless he chooses to take a discount to stay with the 49ers. On the 49ers perspective, I believe even though they could ride the route of Samson Ebukam, Charles Omenihu, you could certainly say, hey, we'll fill it in with role players. What I can definitively say is what unlocks that defense, that efficiency, that pass rush efficiency that we saw in 2019 was having the bookend opposite of Bosa. Having a healthy D Ford completely changed this defense. And that's why I think the 49ers should be salivating at a chance to bring someone in who has the potential to add that same impact that D Ford did.
Yeah, the draft boards for the Niners should be pretty much put together for the most part. And then now they start ranking them coming in April. And if they feel that with the second round pick that there's a lot of more edge talent and that's the way they're going to lean at this moment in time when free agent comes in, maybe they don't put as much urgency into that, and maybe they sign, Laken Tomlinson. So it's going to be a combination factor. But yeah, definitely pick up the phone, see what he's looking for. If he's looking for money that we don't have, then it is what it is. But it's something that I think that they should definitely try to find, because even if they do get an edge rusher and they don't sign, then you have three guys, a rookie who doesn't have to perform right away. He can learn the system, and then he'll be the guy next year. So, there's lots of different formula there, but the Niners like to roll out, 9-10 deep and keep that waves crashing towards the quarterback. So, definitely pick up the phone and see what he's worth.
No doubt about that. We got Niner by Nature 88 coming in with the super chat just to do good deeds for the channel. Saying, Debo, that like button, y'all. I think what he's saying there is hit it. Hit it hard like Debo would. I love Niner by Nature 88 coming in to do this, because I say it, during this time of the offseason, it does require the help of people watching to really amplify these videos, to get them out to more people. So I appreciate, if you do enjoy the content, please consider hitting that like button. Please consider subscribing. Go down in the description, go check out Randon's new channel and subscribe to that as well. Much appreciated, Niner by Nature 88. All right, let's transition into our next topic, one that 49ers fans never get tired of hearing about, and that's Jimmy Garoppolo. Obviously, this came out a little bit ago, but we're talking about the Washington Commanders saying that they could justify a first-round pick for Jimmy Garoppolo. To me, the use of the term justify was the interesting part of that, and it speaks to supply and demand. It's a complicated situation. You have some pretty amazing veterans that might be available, but Jimmy seems like a pretty simple option. Do you think this is the real deal? Do you think Jimmy Garoppolo garners a first-round pick, or is Washington just sort of throwing this out there?
I could justify eating a whole extra large pizza to myself. Doesn't mean it's good for me. I think the fact that they could justify it means this: like, they were a playoff team 2 years ago. They had one of the best defenses in the NFL 2 years ago. Heineke was good in spurts. Jimmy would probably be a more consistent option, based on that. But straight first, I don't think they give up a top 15 pick for Jimmy, in my opinion. Maybe they do a conditional one, right? So conditional next year first round, based on playing time, based on if he resigns, based on how far Washington goes. So if you could do like Jimmy and a third for a conditional second, or Jimmy and a fifth for a conditional second, that could be a first if he meets all these requirements. Then, I could see something like that. But I think they're the 11th pick, like a straight 11 bomb. You're looking at a top player that should start for them next year, under a low salary. I just don't see that happening. But like, if you package the trades together, I think that would be something that you could look at, like a conditional, something similar to Carson Wentz. But we did say last time we were here, that he's probably the easiest of the starting quarterbacks available to trade away, compared to Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, if Kyler Murray's out, all this kind of stuff. So he's probably the easiest choice if the Commanders, I kept wanting to say Redskins, the Commanders want to do that and package it together and find an option because they feel like they're ready to win. They got Terry McLaurin, they got Antonio Gibson, both on rookie deals.
Right.
They got Chase Young, who's coming off of a knee injury, but we saw what Bosa did this year coming off the knee injury. If they feel like their team is ready to win, and you give up not maybe this year's first round because that's a top 11 pick, but maybe next year's first round if it's conditional, and you say, hey, the Cowboys aren't that good, the rest of the team division's not there, we should have done better, and we just need a more stable force behind center, then yeah, you could justify it. It might be an up pay, but maybe they don't believe in the quarterbacks in the draft. Maybe they don't believe that they want to wait. It depends on their thought process. What do you think?
I like 49ers amateur draft scout here. Washington may be trying to start a bidding war for us. That's my hope. That they're driving up the cost for Jimmy G. This feels a little bit to me like just throwing out a little chum in the water and seeing how many sharks are out there, right? This feels a little bit like, let's throw that out there and let's see how our fan base feels about Jimmy Garoppolo and what they would do if we in fact gave up a first rounder. Because I think you can definitively say that a first rounder would be at least mildly overpaying for Jimmy Garoppolo based on what we're hearing around the league. That a first rounder would be sort of a generous first offer to throw out
in the
there.
top 15.
Yeah, right. Oh, right. The 11th overall. I mean, let's not sneeze at the fact that it is almost a top 10 freaking pick. Great call out there. So to me, this seems like setting the bar, and then Washington can come in below it and look like winners, right? If they throw this out there, if they say, hey, we could justify giving up a first. Jimmy's a winner. We're built to win right now. We need a quarterback. If we can bring in a stable quarterback at a reasonable price, we will be contenders for years going forward. We could justify sending out a first for Jimmy, and then they work a deal where they get him for a second. All of a sudden, it seems like a big win to the fan base. Like, oh man, that's value. Like before, a second would have been like, I'm not sure Jimmy's worth a second round pick. We probably should have given a third. But if you throw out there, maybe we should justify giving him a first, and then you give him a second. It's like it's. I mean, you've dealt in sales before, right? That's setting that is setting low expectations and then exceeding them, right? Giving your fan base something where it's like, well, we may have to give up a first for Jimmy. Oh, I'm just kidding. We got him for a second rounder.
Yeah, I mean, it's something to look at. I mean, if we go down this hypothetical train, though, right? If they trade for him, like say the Niners make it a conditional second that goes into a first if Washington makes the playoffs, if Jimmy stays healthy, or he signs an extension. Well, if any of those things happen or multiple things have to happen to get a first, like you're hinging on Jimmy, what you believe Jimmy to be consistent play, right? You've been toting Jimmy's horn all season that he's a consistent quarterback, he's a winner. Yeah. And you're betting on those probabilities to happen, and you get a 2023 first round pick out of it. And if Washington's thinking that they're a contender, that should be a pick in the mid-20s, right? If you're a playoff team. So, I think that you look at it as from Washington's deal, like, okay, hey, we're going to give a conditional. We're going to extend Jimmy maybe 2 more seasons. The one that lowers the cap hit of the $25 million because you can push that, yes. Right? So, all those kind of things. Maybe then Jimmy goes for $22 million or $24 million, and he gets more guaranteed money because right now his guaranteed is only 1.4. Like, there's a lot of hypotheticals out there. I know that Jimmy said, hey, I did all I could do this year. I went to the NFC Championship. Like, probably shouldn't take a pay cut, based on all the salaries going up.
That is fair.
So I wonder what he wants. Does Jimmy want more guaranteed money? Does Jimmy bet on himself and want an extension regardless? Or is he willing to just be like, hey, I'm being traded to wherever and I'm going to win again. And then I'm going to get a huge bag in free agency. It's going to be up to Jimmy too, what he thinks his does he want to sign where he goes? Like I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. I think a lot of teams would be lucky to have Jimmy. I mean, we said the Steelers last week, or I said the Steelers last week, has similar stats to Ben Roethlisberger with 150 less throws, and they're built to win right now. So it's going to be interesting what the market believes. I know fans are scarred. Fans are scarred from the emotional damage of the Jimmy G train. But executives, like finding a starting quarterback that's competitive every single year, executives look for that kind of stuff. So
it's harder than people believe it to be as far as fan bases go. Yeah. I think that there is a distinct possibility that this happens, but it is interesting to consider in adding to the dialogue that Kyle Shanahan and Washington, previously the Redskins while he was there, now the Washington Commanders, don't have the best of relationships. And Kyle Shanahan may not want to do any favors for Washington. Dan Snyder may not want to do any favors for Kyle Shanahan. It will be interesting to see if that comes into play. I, too, believe that Pittsburgh is still the prime destination. I saw someone put out a comparison, direct comparison of the throws by yard and quadrant, right, where it breaks it down into actual thirds of the field, where it's left side of the field before 10 yards, and then middle of the field, right side of the field, and then beyond that. Comparing Ben Roethlisberger to Jimmy Garoppolo. And while Jimmy's are not that impressive, if we're honest, right? Except in the middle of the field. When you compare it to Ben, it's better in almost every quadrant. So they could do what they were doing with Ben Roethlisberger and winning in this season, getting to the playoffs. They could do it more efficiently with Jimmy Garoppolo. So I continue to push that Pittsburgh narrative. I'm glad that I have you on the Pittsburgh train as well, Randon. I think it is going to, it's going to fruition. I think we're going to have that. All right. Let's transition yet again. This is an interesting one, Randon. This is one that you called to my attention. This is in talking about a 49er great, P. Willie, talking about Patrick Willis. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm referencing the tweet that came out. Yeah. It sparked your interest in some regard to where he says, "Congrats to the Rams," puts in a trophy emoji. "The new Super Bowl champions 2022. They all pulled together and did what needed to be done and whom were committed to the cause. I must say, it does make my heart tingle and blood flow when I think about, again, the championship trophy emoji and not talking about the past in all caps, PAST." Well, that indicates he's talking about the current or the future, right? If it ain't the past, then it's the now or it's the future. What's your take on this?
So obviously the biggest comparison right now is Weddle, right? Came out of retirement. I mean, he was playing 5-on-5 basketball and came out of retirement to pursue a ring. And, you look at, he's 37. So a little bit different situation. A lot longer removed from the game, but every single photo that you look at him right now, he's still swole. Like, he looks in shape. Hasn't played in a while, so his body hasn't been taking the hit. I'm sure all his turf toe injuries are healed up by now, and maybe it's something where he only plays 8 games. Right? They sign him mid-season, and he plays. I don't foresee him being a special teams guy, like the third linebacker playing special teams. I think that's kind of like dogging him, but. Maybe, they trade away Dre Greenlaw because they believe in Al-Shaair. They have another maybe rookie linebacker or practice squad guy, and then he's coming in there. But so that's kind of an option there if he wants to do it as a player. But he's always been a fan of the organization, and maybe he thinks that this is now his time to come in and help the organization win it as a coach.
That's where my thought goes with this. But first, I do have to pull in. I feel the same way. I3 coming in. Bro, if Willis comes back for us, I'm getting a jersey and tickets. That's where I am too. Like, forget about it. I don't think it happens in the least. But if it did, forget about it. I would be all over it. We would have Patrick Willis shows every single week for months on end where we would talk about nothing else but Patrick Willis. But to me, the man is 37 years old. And I did a double take when I looked at that. When I looked at the fact that he was born in January of 85, I was like, man, Patrick Willis is 37 years old. that's a little bit crazy. But he's already coaching linebackers in the virtual context via this coach tube thing that he's involved with. So I could very much see Patrick Willis attempting to come back to the 49ers as a member of the coaching staff. And I think that would be a phenomenal thing to happen. I can't imagine that he wouldn't impart some of his fervor for the game into the current players, and that wouldn't be inspirational to the team. So I don't see it as him potentially making a comeback like Eric Weddle did, but I do see him alluding to potentially coaching in the league. And if he did, the 49ers would be wise to consult him and bring him in. I think you got to embrace your alumni like that.
Hey, why not do a hybrid thing? It happens in hockey sometimes, the player coach role. He starts out as a coach, they get an injury down the line, just throw in the pads and throw him in there. But yeah, it depends, man. People are freaks. Like the nutrition and all that kind of stuff nowadays, and the amount of time that he had off, like not taking punishment on his body. Like people are the health and getting in shape. Like technology now is greater than it ever has been, and who knows? But I don't the slim chance. But hey, I mean, it could be a Weddle situation. He only played the last 2 games of the season and then the playoffs.
Right.
So like if it's that kind of situation, but I could foresee him. He's been such an ambassador for the team, being a linebackers coach. And I'm sure he respects DeMeco Ryans, like learning under him and maybe becoming a defensive coordinator. That'd be something that maybe he would like to do for the Niners to start there.
Yes, while we're exploring some conspiracy theories, Jan has pointed out that this could explain why Joe Montana was seemingly disparaging Trey Lance, is that he is also planning a comeback, and that potentially that's why. He's like, well, Trey's not ready, but guess what? I've been on the TB12 diet for the last 14 months, and I'm ready to play.
Hey, no offense to Nate Sudfeld, but if Trey goes down, then I'll take 50-year-old Joe Montana.
Oh, amen. Amen to that. I would definitely take 50-year-old Joe Montana. No offense to Nate Sudfeld, but over Nate Sudfeld. All right, let's get back into people talking about things that are more relevant to this team.
Probably less tinfoil hat, yeah.
Yeah, not hypotheticals. Let's talk about Jay Glazer's comments on Trey Lance, right? This has been getting a lot of run, that there have been a couple of seemingly disparaging comments, or people have chosen to interpret them as disparaging when referencing Joe Montana, even when referencing what Deebo Samuel said about Trey Lance, which I just thought to be fairly honest about a young player who is coming into his own. I didn't feel them to be disparaging remarks, but now you have the other side of it, where both Jay Glazer and Peter King are interviewed by Matt Maiocco and have positive things to say. I'm going to read out the comments that Jay Glazer made to Matt Maiocco. I've heard great stuff about him, honestly. I've heard they love him. They're enamored with him. He does some things in practice that make you go, oh my goodness. But he's young. I think they did the right thing. I think halfway through the season, they were almost tempted to go with him. Then Jimmy just started playing better and better and better and better and better. I think they lucked out by him getting hurt, so they couldn't force him in earlier. I thought that was an interesting second part to the statement, which I think is true, that the 49ers sort of lucked into this scenario where Jimmy played the rest of the season because of the fact that Lance hurt his knee in that first game. Kyle Shanahan alluded to the fact that he was nearly ready to make the switch at that point in time because the Niners didn't seem to be going anywhere. I just went back and watched a video an article I put out on October 16th, where I was trying to tell people that there was still a chance. It was met with skepticism. People were not pleased that I was trying to remain optimistic. I just want to say, if I'm pulling receipts, I'm pretty proud of myself that I wasn't giving up at that point. I was still optimistic. But the Niners were clearly contemplating moving on to Lance at that point. And I do think that him resting the entire season showed out in his second performance when he came back. So when you look at this, when you look at Jay Glazer's comments, are you taking them at face value, or are you looking at this as more of team propaganda?
No, I truly if you follow the line of what a possibility. Like, I thought that Kyle got bailed out multiple times by injuries, right? So like Jimmy gets injured. Okay, now it's time to we can try Trey. If Trey blows the top off this thing, then I don't have to make the decision to go back. It's apparent that he's the quarterback.
Right.
And then he didn't blow the top off the thing in the Arizona game, whether you believe that's Kyle Shanahan's fault or his own. It didn't happen. So then the injury allowed him to go back to Jimmy without any backlash from most people because of, Trey's injured and Jimmy's not. So let's go with the healthy quarterback. Well, then, the only other thing was that after the Indy game where Jimmy played like crap, but then you could say, oh, it was weather and Trey's still not healthy, blah, blah, blah. But then, Jimmy did start winning. And you're not going to get off the train when it's going full bore. And so
no.
I think the fact that Kyle got bailed out by the injuries here and it helped him not have to make a decision when he would have. Like if Trey was healthy after the Cardinals game, he probably starts against Indy and he doesn't stop starting the rest of the season.
I agree.
In my opinion. So, that's my opinion there. On the second point about them being enamored, I brought this up a couple times on multiple shows of the podcast called Tight End One that Greg Olson interviewed a lot of tight ends throughout the league. Travis Kelce, Kittle, amongst others. And Kelce talked about the season that Mahomes came in with Alex Smith. And he said, like, towards the end of the season, watching him on the practice squad, like just playing, playground football, throwing 50-yard bombs on their number one, on their first string defense. He said, like, you knew this kid was special, but Alex Smith was winning games. Like they had 13 wins. Like, I believe in that season. So it's the same thing. I believe that Trey is extremely talented. I believe that Trey, even in preseason, was showing stuff that made you go like, man, this guy has a possibility of being great.
Right.
So yeah, I think
he displayed the physical gifts.
Yeah, you see both sides. Like it's not rocket science for that to say like, dude, the kid's gifted. He wouldn't have been drafted at 3 if he wasn't. Jimmy was winning down the stretch. Injuries bailed out Kyle for making decisions here and there. And there you go. Like it's not like, I don't know. What do you think? I went off a couple.
I liked all of those points. I tend to, in going back to is this propaganda question, I tend to take the other side of that. I think it is to some degree. When it comes from these sources that are very specific to the 49ers organization, Jay Glazer is close to John Lynch, most definitely. He spoke about him later on in that interview as well. And then Peter King, most definitely close to the 49ers. And his comments, let me read those just to get them in context as well. Yeah. Peter King says, my feeling is, and I feel strong about this, my feeling is Kyle Shanahan knows right now that he has a good quarterback. I think the 49ers are in good shape for the future if they have a quarterback who is a B+ or better player. I will be surprised if Trey Lance in 2022 isn't as good or better than Jimmy Garoppolo was in 2021. Having said that, I think Garoppolo is better than he will ultimately get credit for. I think they've got a chance to get as far or farther next year than they got this year. So going back to the propaganda statement that I contend it sort of is, it's mild propaganda to me. It's the type of propaganda that you expect an organization to put out about a quarterback that is going to be their starter going forward. Much like you expected them to say nice things about Jimmy Garoppolo for the entirety of this season. Having said that, I don't think it makes these statements any less true, in my opinion. I feel very strongly, like Peter King says there, that the San Francisco 49ers, because of what they've built on the roster in its entirety, that if they can have, and I would lower it, I would say if they can have a B-level quarterback or better, they're fine. And if Lance can just be a B-level quarterback while he's learning, if he can offer some great shot plays in addition to some rookie mistakes, even though he'll be a second-year player, I believe that he's capable of getting the 49ers exactly to where they got or further this year. So I agree with Peter King, even though I do think it's a bit of propaganda put out by the Niners.
Yeah, I don't think it's like Cold War propaganda. I think it's something, just maybe a nice little rock and roll poster. Hey, my band's playing at the Rainbow Lounge, but
That's right.
Just,
an advertisement.
Yeah, no advertisement, which you got to do. You got to get people excited, right?
Got to.
People are
sell
still
tickets?
sour. People are still sour about the NFC Championship game.
Yes, they are.
You know, and all this kind of stuff like that. So, you know, you got to sell it. But I think most of the people are behind Trey. But like again, you know, there's a lot of the fan base that says, hey, like, you know, he's one of 6 guys who has played less than or started less than 4 games in his rookie year for the last 2 decades, drafted in the top 5. Like, so he's of the minority of top 5 drafted quarterbacks. And so, you know, it's something that is, you know, on the minds of people. Like, you know, if they believe that Jimmy isn't good and he isn't able to start over Jimmy, and that's why Jimmy started, then that maybe weighs on your head. But, you know, I think that, like you said, you know, to kind of put a pin in this is I think you're right. I think all Trey has to do is be a quarterback. Like unless he is like brutal, like Zach Wilson was this year for most of the year, like then the team is going to win games.
He's just got to be slightly above average. That's my contention.
You know, and you know, we'll get into this in the next topic, but Vegas still thinks the Niners are good, you know, and so like if the whole roster is deep and we can re-sign a few guys, we get a good draft pick in the second round that can contribute right away. Maybe Aaron Banks isn't as garbage as people think because he sat the whole first year out. Like this team could be pretty good, you know. Can Kinlaw stay healthy and plug up the middle? You know, DJ Jones, like this team can be pretty good. Like I don't want to sign everybody back because you got to make cuts here and there, but like the NFC's has the potential to be really weak. Like if Aaron Rodgers is out,
dude, if Rodgers and Russell Wilson are out,
well, even Rodgers, because Seattle's not a good team. So
yeah, that's fair. They do seem to have the Niners number, but yes, they're not a great team.
So if Rodgers is out, then you have the Cardinals if Murray stays, the Niners, the Rams, and that's pretty much it. Like you don't really have a lot of. I mean, people can take jumps because free agency happens and teams are
most
different
definitely.
from year to
There's
year.
always a worst to first every year.
Just based on roster construction of last season, like you got to put the Niners in the top 3 in the NFC, regardless if Rodgers is there. And if Rodgers leaves, I mean, then you could make a case for 1 or 2.
Right. So it goes back to just needing Trey to be good, not great. And I think that should alleviate a lot of concerns for Niners fans. That Niner guy coming in with the super chat, Kyle steered clear of the quarterback controversy, even though the trade caused one. It was Jimmy season until they were out. Kyle was very honest about that. I have to agree, that Niner guy. I mean, from the get-go, Kyle Shanahan was very straightforward in his belief that Jimmy Garoppolo gave him the better chance to win. He stuck with that line, even though I believe it did change for him at some point. Some point later in that run, I think he moved to it's Jimmy's team out of respect. Like these guys went to war with Jimmy Garoppolo. Let's finish the season with him. Because towards the end, after the thumb injury, it could have been another pivot point. It could have been another time for Kyle Shanahan to reevaluate, hey, do I attempt to work Trey in here? He didn't flinch. He went back to Jimmy, even with the injury, and rode it out. And I got to respect that. Like, I do respect that decision to go one final ride or die with Jimmy Garoppolo. And it ended in a death in the NFC Championship game, but it was a valiant death in my book.
Yeah, I mean, in his opinion, might be different than ours when the season was over. I thought the season was over when they were, you know, what was it, 3-5 or 2-5? You know, I thought the season was over. I would have went to Trey at that point and stuck with him and said, hey, let's see what we can get for Jimmy at the deadline. You know, but his opinion's the only one that matters, being the head coach, and he stuck with it.
Yes, he did. Gizmo coming in. If we bring in Tyrod Taylor, will he compete for the starting quarterback job, or is it Trey's automatically? I could see Tyrod beating out Trey because of more experience. I think competition is healthy. Gizmo, this is an interesting question. First of all, Tyrod Taylor is my premier pick for backup quarterback. I understand he's probably too expensive to bring in, but if he's willing to take any type of a discount and play for a salary that hovers around $10 million, to me, he would be the best option to bring in as that backup quarterback. And I do think that there has to be competition, but I will say it would be competition, wink, wink, that it's a competition in words only, that Trey would be the heavy favorite to win it. And Tyrod Taylor would need to, I think, vastly outperform him, because think of the shitstorm that would come if Trey Lance didn't start in his second season as well.
Yeah, I mean, I would say this year he had to earn the job, and next year it'll be his job to lose. But you need to like have healthy competition. Nate Sudfeld is not healthy competition.
I
Like
wouldn't think so.
You need somebody to push him. It's like Tyrod Taylor's been a starter in the NFL. And so, you need somebody to push him, just like, like they did with Andy Dalton. Like they named Andy Dalton the starter, but, he was pushing, Fields for the most of the season,
Right.
at least a little bit. So I think that it's healthy. Like if you sign a backup that is, and it's, or you name Trey the starter tomorrow, like, does that really do anything? Like I wanted more of a competition in camp. And if you bring in Tyrod Taylor, what does that say? That says to me that this is Trey's job to lose, but there's a capable guy that he could lose it to if he's not taking this seriously.
Right.
And ultimately I want my team to win. So
I do too. And there are only a couple of guys that will legitimately present that option. Tyrod Taylor is one of them. I agree with admin Honor coming in here. I would love Mariota also as a backup. I think the problem with both of those guys is that they will be attempting to get a starting role within the NFL. Yeah. Both of them are NFL starting caliber type quarterbacks that could easily find a starting role in the teams that are, between 20 and 32. Just to get a cheaper option as they bridge the way to whatever their next quarterback is. So to me, that's the tough part of it is, it has to be a competition. This is the NFL. You can't have a veteran locker room on a great Super Bowl caliber team and just anoint the young quarterback. If he clearly struggles, you got to do the right thing. But again, going into it, I have to imagine it would be heavily steeped in favor of Lance winning that one.
Yeah, well, maybe Ryan Fitzpatrick. And we could have him on the episode. We could have him on one episode, and we could have in between three beards.
In between three beards, Ryan. You hear this? We need you. We need you, Ryan Fitzpatrick. All right, you alluded to this topic, so let's hit it. May the odds be ever in your favor. The San Francisco 49ers, depending on what website you go to, are 12 plus 1,200 to win the Super Bowl, plus 1,100. They are in most sites the fourth most favored team with respect to winning the Super Bowl in 2023. They are the second favorite team in the NFC behind only the Los Angeles Rams. So what does this say to you, Randon? What impression are you taking away from Vegas's placing of the 49ers odds here? And is it appropriate?
So the odds right now are based off of the roster as currently is. So, it's based to get people to bet on money because you're getting the highest odds right now because free agency and the draft hasn't happened, right? So I think it's showing that the Niners are considered one of the best rosters from top to bottom in the league.
I agree.
And I think that this odd shows, while everybody assumes Jimmy is out, it kind of pads Vegas's butt a little bit. The fact that this could be for Trey or for Jimmy. So if 1,200 is for Trey, then they have then the roster for the Niners is even considered to be even better because a rookie, right? And then Jimmy has been into the NFC Championship game twice, Super Bowl once, and so like you can make that honest assumption that could be it. But I think it's pretty much showing that like the Vegas thinks we're deep, we think we're deep. If we can get more production out of some of the rookie draft class of last season and our second round pick as an instant starter, I think you're looking at a team that, like we said, with a decent play from Trey, if he has more B games than D games, we should be favored in that as one of the top three teams in the NFC.
Yeah, I agree. I think it certainly is Vegas attempting to maximize betting, but I will say that it seems appropriate to me that valuation of the San Francisco 49ers roster construction of everything, including the unknown of the quarterback position, to me, it's an appropriate an appropriate betting angle that the 49ers are that good of a team, that they should be favored to do well next season. And that, to Peter King's comments, and both of us agreeing with it, that all they need out of Trey Lance is decent quarterback play in order to replicate. Because that's how I would describe a lot of Jimmy Garoppolo's games. Were decent games. Not a whole lot of games where he came out and really wowed you. A couple of games where he came out and you were left scratching your head. But for the most part, good play, right? Interspersed with inconsistency. So if we can get the same thing from a second-year player who's got a large number of physical gifts, that doesn't seem too far out of the realm of possibility. So to me, it is the appropriate level of odds for the 49ers to go to the Super Bowl in 2023. Just want to bring in 49ers first takes with the Super Chat. Aaron, appreciate that. Keep doing God's work and keeping 49ers content coming. Thank you, Rob Schuh. Appreciate that, Aaron. Over on 49ers First Takes, we are looking to get a show going again on Aaron's channel over there. Want to make sure to hit on this because it happened today. It's just a quick dig at our division rivals. But the Rams had their parade, and it was mildly sad, if we call it such. The pictures of it were not very flattering for the Los Angeles Rams. The streets were not packed. It was rather sparse in the crowds. And to me, it's just a statement of what LA has to battle with in being a market where people are obsessed with other stuff outside of football, and a team that, let's be honest, abandoned their fan base multiple times because they left to go to St. Louis and then they came back, right? So how do you really trust them? How do you let yourself get emotionally involved? It was, to me, it was a little bit sad to watch, but it's fitting for a Los Angeles football team. And to me, it doesn't reflect too poorly on the franchise. It just is what it is in my book. What's your take on it, Randon?
Yeah, it is what it is. And, I think there was a good article that I referenced a couple weeks ago saying that because of the fact that they've moved multiple times, the fan base hasn't had a good foothold, which means that you don't develop new fans, right? I mean, do you really think people that are in St. Louis who are Rams fans are going to travel to LA and take time off of work for a parade? Probably not. And then, if you're just becoming a Rams fan since they moved here, there. And I have friends who live in LA because the Chargers were the only close team in San Diego for the longest time. They're Chargers fans, or then you got some that are Raiders fans. And so, there's just a lot. There hasn't really been an identity for football in LA in a while.
No.
This Super Bowl should help with their fandom.
It should.
Right. Young fans or kids or people who we talked about it, gravitate towards the highlight level players. You got Cooper Kupp, who's the best wide receiver in football as far as his stats were concerned last season. You have a ring now. You have Aaron Donald, one of the best defensive players. There's lots of good jerseys. I mean, blue's a good color. I think the fact that it'll help going forward with their fandom, and maybe their closet will look a little less bare, if you will. But yeah, it was sad compared to other things. But you saw what LA has done with other sports like the Lakers and
there's no shortage of Laker fans.
There are plenty of people to show up to those parades, and maybe this will jumpstart their fandom and give them an edge up on the Chargers in producing more fans based on this win.
Yeah, it definitely hurts the Chargers' chances of making new fans. Because if you're picking one, why not pick the one that just won a freaking championship? I agree with Tony pointing out as well, one of our sneakerheads, that LA is full of transplants. And so that's one reason that it is difficult to garner a fan base there, is you have other football fans that are there coming from elsewhere outside of LA coming into town. It is tough. But we'll give them some credit that, hey, they did win the championship, even if their Super Bowl parade was sad and pales in comparison to what it would have been if it had been in San Francisco for the Niners. They still did have a Super Bowl parade. So credit to them.
The Martin Trophy still looks the same. So I'm sure the Rams players are fine with it.
It even weighs the same. All right, let's talk a little bit about some free agents that were linked to the San Francisco 49ers. This came from an article that some of you may not have seen because it is behind the ESPN Plus paywall, but it did list out the 50 top free agents as of right now. Any of these guys could get re-signed to their own team and not make it a free agency. But as of right now, they're trending toward free agency. This is according to ESPN in the ranking. And 3 of them were linked to the San Francisco 49ers. Thought we'd talk about it a little bit. Let me talk about who those 3 were. First one was ranking at the 21st spot out of the top 50 free agents, Stephon Gilmore. Now, the way in which they approached this was they actually listed the best fit, the best landing spot for the free agent. And in this case, they said the Steelers would be the best landing spot. But in the mentions, the 49ers came up. It said about 24 teams had interest at the trade deadline. The 49ers desperately need corner help and will probably poke around here. To me, that's about all they're going to get with Stephon Gilmore, unless he ends up with a very soft market. And I can't imagine it. This is an elite outside corner on the wrong side of 30, but he also has slot corner skills as well. So he's a versatile cornerback. And, you know, he's coming off of the injury, so maybe that hurts him. But for the most part, around the league, I think he's wildly respected. So my guess is he gets paid as such, and I just don't think the 49ers can afford him. So I would love Stephon Gilmore as a free agent. I would love the 49ers to look into this. I just don't think it's a real possibility. What are your thoughts, Randon?
Yeah, I mean, you're probably going to be able to find a team that is also competitive. I mean, you know, it's going to be what he wants. I'm sure he wants to win a championship.
I would think so.
He's gotten paid. I mean, his last year, his cap hit for the Patriots was $23 million. So he's made a fair chunk of change there.
It's a good bag.
32. So does he want to go? Does he want to go win, or does he want to, do that kind of thing where he's like, hey, I'm just going to get as much money as I can. I'm pretty sure he played most of his career, so he probably would have won a championship with the Patriots at some point. So does he say, hey, I already got a ring, so like I'm fine, and this is what it is, and I just want to get money? The same thing with Dante Fowler. It's going to be his thing there. I think ultimately we'll get outbid because we don't have the most salary cap of anybody. But people are saying, hey, the 27 million or 25 million from Jimmy, will help go towards that. So a little bit of both. I mean, it's definitely something to look at. I mean, he's probably he's better than any option that we have now. Mosley played top level play this year, but Ambry Thomas is, he's not as good as Stephon Gilmore. So it'll be interesting to see. I just don't foresee it happening. I think we'll get edged out salary wise.
I tend to agree. The Niners need to fill up the cornerback room. They need more bodies there. I just don't think they can spend this kind of money in filling out that room. Because you mentioned it. Ambry Thomas showed promise. He's going to be competing for a starting spot. Emmanuel Mosley looked very good. He's going to be competing for a starting spot. So when you bring someone in, it's to compete. I don't think you can afford someone who's just going to claim one of those spots like Gilmore would.
Yeah, agreed.
And next one on the list is one of our own. Laken Tomlinson cracked the top 50. He was listed at number 38. Unfortunately, ESPN Plus has listed as his best fit Miami, as you might understand why. They said Tomlinson thrived in Kyle Shanahan's system, and if San Francisco doesn't re-sign him, reuniting with Mike McDaniel is the best option. Expect the 49ers to open extension talks closer to free agency. I've got Tomlinson as my second biggest priority, re-signing him right behind the man, the myth, the legend, DJ Jones. So to me, the Niners need to prioritize this, but I tend to agree that he's probably going to make 10 million plus. And I just think that that's probably the cutoff for the Niners, that they may be willing to pay him 9.5 on average per year. But when we get into double digits, I just don't know that the Niners are going to be willing to contribute that much money to the guard spot that they have, to this point, not invested significant capital in as an organization underneath Shanahan and Lynch. So to me, I believe the fact that unfortunately Laken Tomlinson may be headed to Miami. I would make one extra push and try to bring him in, but if the price gets too high, you got to let him go.
Yeah, does he want to win at this age? Does he want to get a big bag of money? He knows the cap situation, or at least his agent should.
Yes,
the cap situation for Miami. And so like if you're him, why not test the market? You could still get signed by the Niners, but why not see what Miami's willing to offer you? And if they were close to a playoff team, if you believe in Mike McDaniel, like there's options there for him. So unfortunately, I think it's going to be a tough get. Now, if he ultimately loves playing next to Trent Williams and he's willing to take a hometown discount and he wants to stay in SF because he's been here for years on end and that's his priority, then yeah, great. Like he's one of the people that I think we should resign for sure.
Yeah, most definitely. The last one that was mentioned as a link to the San Francisco 49ers was Brian Allen, the center who will be coming out of Los Angeles. He was listed as the 47th best free agent. And he was listed as a best fit for the Chicago Bears. And I understand why, again, in that it's just an uncertain situation for the San Francisco 49ers. In referencing San Francisco, they said the 49ers could be a sleeper here, though, too. Alex Mack is a candidate to retire, and the 49ers and Rams offenses employ similar run game play action principles. To me, I'm just betting on the fact that Alex Mack comes back. I just don't see a scenario where you sign a 3-year deal and then after 1 year where the team makes it unexpectedly to the NFC Championship game and seems poised to be able to do it again, to then walk away mid-deal. Like, had he signed initially just a 2-year contract, I could see him being a little less sure of the route he was going to go. He seemed to get better to me as the year went on. I'm banking on Alex Mack coming back, but if that's not the case, the Niners need to be savvy with this. You cannot afford to go with a rookie that's unqualified to be your center or some patchwork solution. That's a good way to throw off Trey Lance's development by not having a quality center in the Shanahan offense.
Yeah, I think he signed a 3-year deal primarily to help with the cap room, right? His first season was
spread it out.
Yeah, to spread it out. So, regardless if he plays or not, the dead cap is 2.4 because that's all his signing bonus that was allocated out down his line there. So he gets that whether he retires or not. But the rest of it, the base salary is $5 million, I think, next year. So it would definitely help us save some money. And that's what they're probably thinking with Allen there. I think regardless, we need to invest in it in the draft or in free agency. If Mac retires, in the draft for if he doesn't, because then it's cheap. He gets a year to train underneath Mac and learn everything and go that route. But center calls all the calls there. I mean, I don't know if they're going to rely on Trey to do that. And so you need somebody intelligent up there, and Allen's one of the better ones in the game. And so if Mac does retire, you need to get a free agent that knows what he's doing. Otherwise, we could be in trouble there.
I agree. You want to take stuff off of Trey Lance's plate when possible, not pile it on there. You're hoping to allow the game to speed up for him so that to slow down for him to speed up within the game. And by forcing him to make additional checks and calls at the line of scrimmage, that would seem to run counter to that simplification effort there. I do agree with this sentiment. It's very interesting. Melvin Creditford pointing out that as of today, it would appear that our O-line is a hot mess, but that's only because it's so undecided at this point. It goes from potentially 4 out of 5 positions in flux to being very solidified, right? All it takes is the 49ers. They already have left tackle locked down. If they re-sign Laken Tomlinson, they now have their left guard. If Alex Mack decides he's not retiring, boom, center is filled. Right guard, you at least have Aaron Banks to compete for it, and you have other options that you can re-sign. That's only one unstable position. Mike McGlinchey, if he's healthy coming back from that quad tear, fills the right tackle spot. So 4 out of the 5 could be in flux, but each one is little to moderate risk in my book. So as a whole, it looks ugly, but I think each one most likely goes in the Niners' favor in that regard.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're playing devil's advocate of what it could look like, right? McGlinchey, his quad tear was really bad. If he is not healthy enough to play, then we're starting to back up right tackle. If Aaron Banks isn't the man and he can't improve, and he's still a quote unquote bust pick for the second round.
Right.
And our right guard spots, Provy, Mac retires, and we don't get Allen. Chicago offers him more money, and we're starting a subpar center, and we lose out on Lincoln Tomlinson. Then that's a lot of losses that could potentially happen. But I agree with you and think that we'll at least get half those things figured out. We have no control over how McGlinchey, he's 100% guaranteed salary.
Yeah.
We have no idea how he's going to be back in the season. So I tend not to worry about things I can't control. Well, I guess I can't control any of this stuff, but the contract stuff is the most up and down thing for me. Is what the market for Tomlinson is going to be the most interesting, in my opinion.
I agree. I totally agree. Lakin could get really well paid or could be back for $9 million a year. Like, that is a wide difference. I do agree with Tony in that maybe it was a bit of hyperbole to use the term hot mess. He's saying not exactly a hot mess, not proven though. I think a better analogy is that this is like a parlay bet where each one of the individual bets is a pretty high probability, but the probability of hitting all of them still gives you good odds, because the probability of hitting all of them is not good, right? The odds are the San Francisco 49ers will have uncertainty at one of those four spots at a minimum. But I agree that it's possible they all work out. As of right now, just a lot of unknowns at the minute.
Yeah.
Getting into our final topic here. This is the ongoing one that we have been hitting. Last week, we did the quarterbacks, where we looked back to look at their past performance and future value. This week, we tackle the running back room, inclusive of those fullbacks, because they don't get enough. They don't get enough love.
Because he's juicy.
Yes. They don't get enough mention. We need the fullback. When we're talking about juice from here on out, we got to talk about the best fullback bar none. We got to get William Floyd back in the mentions for the old school 49er fans that remember William Floyd, the best fullback bar none. So this one is, as we explained it last week, just so that people are current, this is intended to be a look back at these individual players' performances over the 2021 season, and then a look forward. What's in store for them? Are they a pending free agent? Are they someone that's likely to be traded or re-signed? Are they currently locked into a long-term deal? And will the 49ers explore any trades for them? Basically, how are the San Francisco 49ers prioritizing each one of these as it relates to their performance in 2021? So I'll leave it in your court. Do you want to start at the top or start at the bottom? We want to start with some high grades or some low grades?
Let's just pick a player. Let's go for it.
Let's do it. Let's start with, I got to do it. I got to start high. I got to start us off on a good note. Let's go Elijah Mitchell.
All right,
let's look at Elijah Mitchell's 2021 season to begin with. What kind of a grade are you throwing out for our nice rookie running back, Eli?
A for me. And a 6th round pick, so he well exceeded his draft selection there. Almost 1,000 yards. He probably would have been over 1,000 yards if he was healthy. So if you want to knock off for health, then B+, but I think his performance was an A on the field. No fumbles, 5 touchdowns there. He probably got a lot of touchdowns eaten into by Deebo Samuel. So yeah, maybe now that I think about it, B+. I'll go B+, just to add the injury in there. And I think that there was times in the season where his vision and explosiveness was a little bit less than what I thought it would be. So I'm gonna say B+. But for a 6th round pick, definitely better than anybody thought for this team.
You do have to balance that. So if I'm going pros and cons, first of all, got to thank Silverado Kev for bringing this back in, because I wouldn't have mentioned it. I knew it, but I wouldn't have mentioned it. A rookie quarterback, it keeps jumping around. Here we go, Silverado Kev. I got you in here. For a rookie running back not to fumble, not once, amazing. Yeah. Agree. Ball security, and as far as expectations, dude came in as a 6th round pick. I didn't expect him to contribute. So in that vein, I would have gone A+. That was the grade that jumped out at me. But I do think that he had some second level vision issues where he may have hit that initial hole really fast, but then there were times where he seemed to make the cut inside where bouncing it out would have been a touchdown, or vice versa. So the the vision, and you mentioned the injuries as well. I think you have to take off something for that. I'm still going solid A for Elijah Mitchell. And I'll take the lead on where I think he goes for the San Francisco 49ers. I think he's their lead back going forward, that on this rookie deal, Elijah Mitchell will be the lead running back for the San Francisco 49ers. That even if they bring back Raheem Mostert next season, which we'll touch on in just a little bit, whether we believe they will or not, I think Elijah Mitchell holds on to that lead dog spot.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the thing that you look at, like his longest run of the season was only 39 yards. So that's got to improve the breakaway stuff. I mean, not everybody's Mostert where he could, or Breida who had that ability, but he's got to get better. I mean, supposedly he had 4.3 speed in college. The pad's a little bit different, but also hitting the holes at the right time really helps set things up. And we got to see improvement. And I hopefully next year, the home run speed and the home run vision is there. And he can break a couple more of those long plays and not have a game where he's 25 for 100 at 3.7 yards per carry, whatever that comes out to. But
right,
he breaks off a couple more long ones there.
And you would expect that the game slows down for him a little bit. He was a rookie, and that could alleviate some of those second level vision issues that you saw where he just made the wrong cut. All right, let's jump on to another high grade in my book, and let's talk about the frickin' man, the myth, the legend, Juice. Kyle Juszczyk. I gotta give him an A+. I feel like he has done everything that is asked of him within this offense. He contributes primarily as a phenomenal blocker in space. He blocks on the move like nobody I've ever seen. It's remarkable what he is able to do within this offense. He does everything that's asked of him with a smile. He's a great teammate by all outward appearances. He gets the carries. He makes the catches. He gets paid like he's an A+ player. To me, Juice is as advertised. He's advertised as the best fullback in the NFL, and he damn well is the best fullback in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, he was fourth on the team in receiving. He had 3 first downs rushing. I think they need to use him a little bit less as a rusher, just because we have capable running backs to do those things. You can't really. I don't really throw salary in for the grade. I wouldn't pay a fullback that much, but that's not my money to throw around.
That's fair.
But overall, like the job he does on the field is great. I think maybe because we have not a lot of downfield presence, or he's not the first read, they throw him down the field a lot. Maybe I wouldn't do that so much because he's a good receiver for a fullback, but he's not a good receiver for a receiver. Although I probably would say this was an interesting question somebody asked yesterday on Twitter, I think it was, where if he played solely tight end, where would you think that he would be ranked? And I think he'd probably be top. I think he'd be around the 15 to 16 range. He'd probably have to put on some weight, but right. Overall good Swiss Army knife, and it allows Kyle to do everything he wants to do with this offense.
Yes, he is the definition of that positionless player that Kyle Shanahan wants within the offense. Well, maybe Debo is the definition of that, but he is as close to a Swiss Army knife player as you can get. All right, let's transition to.
I didn't give a grade A for me. Yeah.
Oh, A for okay. I thought you had said A on that one, and he seems to me to be a prime candidate to finish out his contract. But it is steep enough that at some point the Niners will have to ask themselves the question of when is too late to move on from Kyle Juszczyk, right? When is it, you probably should have moved on last year. You probably should have cut him and gotten some of that money back because you are paying a lot for a fullback. I think he probably plays out this deal. I don't see this 49ers team as the Eddie DeBartolo 49ers teams where they did ship off some of my favorites before they ended up going downhill. And it proved to be right in a lot of those cases, but it was painful to do. I think Juice probably is here for the remainder of this contract.
So the potential out, according to Spot Track, is after 2023. So next year, his total cap hits 2.9. But then after that, it goes up to 6.5 and then 7.5 for 2 years. So if they cut him after the 2023 season, they only owe him $2.6 million. And with the salary cap going up, that's probably an option because he'll be in his mid 30s at that point. And do you really want to pay a fullback $7 million, which I don't?
Yeah, I may have to retract my previous statement there, looking at 7.5 mil. That's tough to stomach. It will depend on what type of team the 49ers are, right? If they are at the cusp of the Super Bowl, I'm willing to pay a player like Juice because I think he adds significant value. But if you're a step or two away, you got to look at roster construction. Unless the cap goes up incredibly and just jumps from season to season because of the new TV deals that have been put in place, 7.5 mil for a freaking fullback is a lot to spend. Yep. All right, let's keep going because I know you got to get out of here for an upcoming podcast at 6:30. So let's go quickly through Jeff Wilson Jr. there. To me, I was struck by how much different this year was from 2019 when it came down to the number of carries and how they were divided up. To me, it was Elijah Mitchell and Kyle Juszczyk, and then everybody else. That's standard within the running back room. We got to give the nod to the wide back room. That's an unquestioned room that adds incredible value. But it was clear that Kyle Shanahan, after Elijah Mitchell and Kyle Juszczyk, didn't truly trust Jeff Wilson Jr. or JaMycal Hasty or Trey Sermon. And so to me, that was reflected in the fact that Jeff Wilson Jr., even though he was coming back off of that injury, never got back to that spot where he was getting the type of carries you would expect from a trusted second backup running back within the Shanahan system.
Yeah, I mean, his longest run of the season was 17 yards. We saw multiple over 20-yard rushes in previous season. His vision didn't look really good. Wasn't really trusted when he was on the field. I'd probably say D plus C minus. Like, I don't think he was that great. I think he's not, I wouldn't re-sign him this season if we're going into the future on this part. There's plenty of I forget now off the top of my head to give you the amount, but I think there was over 25 running backs that had over 1,000 yards in college this season, or 35. So, I mean, you can get a guy on a rookie deal. You don't really have to sign him to free agency in the 5th, 6th, 7th round, and to give you some extra depth. Maybe the depth comes from another guy on the list in Mozart. If Mozart wants to stay in SF on a cheap deal, and that's your vet back there. But I don't see Jeff Wilson on the roster next season.
I don't either, unless it's a vet minimum deal. I see in that instance potentially bringing Jeff Wilson back.
I don't even either. Like, I just, there's plenty of backs
not even on the
league.
Vet minimum.
Yeah.
I could see it back in that case, but otherwise I'm with you. JaMycal Hasty is the next one up. To me, it was an average season by him. That is an area I think the 49ers need to upgrade. So in my grade form, I thought it was an average season, much like Jeff Wilson Jr., who I have in that C grade range. I have a C grade on JaMycal Hasty. He was the third down back, but he was not a great third down back. I think the 49ers need to look at upgrading that position, and I believe that they will by either re-signing Raheem Mostert to a very inexpensive one-year deal or looking to fill that position through the draft or free agency. I think they will attempt to upgrade JaMycal Hasty. I was not terribly impressed. What was your impression?
Yeah, about a C. There were some times where you saw he had burst. Sometimes he didn't. He's not really like a full pass catcher. I think Elijah Mitchell could be a very underrated pass catcher. And the Niners...
Yes, his receptions were close to Hasty on fewer pass attempts.
And a lot of people give Jimmy crap for throwing so close to the line of scrimmage, but he doesn't throw to the running back very often. And
Not at all.
And so if they start adding that into their game plan, which I thought they were going to do with Jerick McKinnon when they signed him, maybe they do a third down back and bring him in, bring a third down back in, or that kind of role player that, Elijah Mitchell's going to get the bulk of the carries. Trey Sermon, who we're going to talk about, maybe is a change of pace type guy or a bruiser. And then you have a third down back that is a capable running back, but is really for catching the ball out of the backfield when you need it. And, those can be found in the draft as well. There's plenty of those guys that, based on the offenses run in college, that you can get kind of those guys there that are good pass catchers. And maybe you get a hybrid. I know there's a couple wide receivers that are special team specialists, but maybe you get a running back who's a good pass catcher and has some special team skills late in the draft that could kind of kill two birds, so to speak.
Agreed. That's where I would look later in the draft, and the Niners have found value there. We have to give the nod to the wide back, Deebo Samuel, A+ on the season. The Niners are obviously going to commit to him long-term by paying him the bag. Anything you want to say briefly about Deebo Samuel, the A+ wide back?
I just hope they don't use him as much in between the tackles next season, and that's
Amen.
pretty much it. I think after week 14, like when we're pushing for the playoffs, then you got to get in the playoffs. Everything goes. But in week 1, I don't want to see him getting 10 carries. Like I really don't. Like we need to figure this out. Yeah,
I agree. Trey Sermon coming out of nowhere. If I'm giving him a grade, it's got to be, borderline incomplete, C-, D+. It should be lower. I'm just not ready to write him off yet. He's clearly in the Niners' plans for next year. It's just going to be the second year of his deal. He may be a better choice to go with Aaron Banks and Trey Lance than with Jimmy Garoppolo and the existing offensive line. So you may see a resurgence from him. To me, we just don't have enough information to accurately assess Trey Sermon.
Yeah, he went through some struggles this year. It looks from frustration, right? Going from Oklahoma to Ohio State, being the man there, having I think he had a over 300 yard rushing game. So having that frustration, and then we all thought he was going to be the man, right? I mean, it was going to be Mozart and him,
Yep.
I mean, I definitely took him in a lot of my fantasy drafts. So and it didn't work out that way. He caught the ball in college pretty decently. He's a bigger back, and if he gets his mind right and comes back, the talent is there. And the reason I thought that he would be good in this system is that he had the second best time in the 10-yard split,
right?
Which is that one cut, hit the hole and go down. He doesn't have the breakaway speed, but he hits that hole and do all those things. So I would say probably incomplete, because when he did get in there, he got a concussion. He really only had one full game. He got a touchdown.
And he was hesitant in his runs, and so he wasn't able to illustrate his 10-yard split time, because I was optimistic for that exact same reason, Randon, that he was going to get through that first hole quickly. He may not have the elite speed to break the long ones, but he was going to hit that hole quickly. But he seemed to hesitate, and that's where I think Shanahan got frustrated with him, and then his playing time diminished considerably. So it'll be interesting to see fresh start for him next year. I'm lumping these three.
But I want to say one more thing before we move on.
Yeah, go ahead.
With him, he's already a decent pass catcher, like I said. But if he can carve his own rollout by being a good pass blocker and being able to catch out of the backfield, and I need to develop my skills to earn more playing time, and that's his mindset this offseason.
Right.
That could be something for him, to make that there, because
he could be the third down back I'm looking for.
Yeah. Or a back that you play around the red zone because he's bigger.
Yes.
That can catch, do a little bit of everything, and is a good blocker. But that one cut and his 10-yard split, I really thought that he was going to get more run this year, but he never got that trust. So
I agree. I was looking for more, never got the opportunity. We shall see. I'm lumping these last three together just for time's sake. And I don't mean to do it to Raheem Mostert, but I feel like we've talked about Raheem Mostert to this point, and the grade has to be incomplete. The man had 2 freaking carries in 2021. So it's really just a question of, do you want him back? I do, but only on an inexpensive deal. So the 3 remaining ones are Raheem Mostert, gets an incomplete from me. Josh Hokett on the practice squad, gets an incomplete. And Trenton Cannon, I got to put him at a C for his contributions on special teams, but then falling out of favor. As far as going forward on those 3, for me, I would re-sign Raheem Mostert if you can get him on an inexpensive deal. I assume Josh Hokett will stick with the practice squad, because he will eventually potentially become the replacement for Juice when he hits that $7.5 million figure, or whatever the Niners deem is too expensive. Trenton Cannon, I think the Niners most likely move on from that one. What's your gut say about those 3?
Yeah, on the 2 carries that Mozart had, A+, showed the burst there, and then
yes,
that's about it.
Highest
I think
average on the team.
I think if he wants to stay in San Francisco because this is where his family is and all that kind of stuff, then and he takes that deal because he thinks that he can still run it, then great. If he wants to get as much money, I have a feeling Miami will pay him a decent amount, and so that would be where it's at. I think special teams returner, they need to do a 6th or 7th round pick on a guy that has returning prowess in the draft.
Yes.
Make it a priority. And not have this patchwork BS going there. So with Hokett, yeah, I mean, I don't want to pay a fullback $7.5 million. So we need to keep the replacement around. Look in the draft, I guess, if you want to look in the draft, if college programs still even have fullbacks. But yeah, I think we're pretty much in agreement there.
Nice. I always like it when we're aligned. Going to get to the last couple super chats and get us out of here. George Laramie coming in. Did you guys hear that Tom Brady's family said no to him coming to the 49ers because we chose Jimmy G over him? hey, I'm cool with it. Trey Lance all day. Yeah, I always put the Tom Brady news at about 1 in 100 chance of it being real. I had not heard about the family. I saw some mention of it on Twitter today, but hadn't read the source of it. So it's good to get that information, George. I appreciate you bringing it to the show. I'm all in with Lance as well. I'm ready to see what that is. Would I entertain the idea of Tom Brady? Yes. Am I getting my hopes up over it? Absolutely not. My hopes are pinned on the young gentleman, Trey Lance.
Yeah, I mean, in the Man in the Arena, he said that his wife, Giselle, has been nothing but supportive on everything that he's wanted to do. So I'm sure if Tom wanted to come back for one more run, then she probably would be okay with it based on what he said and everything like that in the series. The Niners thing, I'm not sure. Where I might give more of it, you think Tom would probably keep in shape. If there's an injury midseason to a contender and he could take a third team to the Super Bowl, I think that's more probable than starting the season with the Niners.
That's interesting. That's very interesting, my friend. All right, Sean Preston Sr. with our last super chat before we close out. By the way, if you enjoy the content, hit that like button before you go. Don't forget to go check out Randon's channel as well, which is down below in the description. Sean Preston Sr. coming in. Thank you, Sean. I think Debo will go back to just wide receiver next season. I think he was used in the backfield in place of Mostert. Kyle likes speed in his backfield, which is why I think Mostert comes back. I hope that you're correct about Mostert coming back. I know that you're correct about Kyle liking speed, and I agree that Deebo Samuel was able to hit the edges in a way that Elijah Mitchell was not. That Deebo, he may not have the top end speed of a Ferrari, but he's like a Dodge Demon where his 0 to 60 is ridiculously fast at 2.3 seconds, right? He is the type of player that gets to his top speed very quickly, and that does enable him to make some of those runs within the Shanahan offense, some of those outside zone runs that turn into such huge chunk plays for the 49ers. I would also re-sign Mostert, and I would hope that the 49ers can make Debo into more of a wide receiver where they're using him sparingly in the run game.
Yeah, you can't ignore what he brings to the run game, so I don't think he'll solely be a wide receiver, but he had better vision than Elijah Mitchell, and he was able to get to the second level multiple times, and that's why they kept using him. And so if Mitchell can improve and start showing that second level, then they're not going to need to use Debo as much. If they re-sign Mostert and he's able to do that, then they're not going to need to use Debo as much. But if the running game struggles to have that breakaway type stuff, I wouldn't count it out. I mean, they're going to want to win. So
no way.
It's going to be up to progression from the other running backs in the room, in my opinion.
Well said. The 49ers could certainly go back to it if they need to. And you know Kyle Shanahan is willing to do whatever it takes to win. We got to get you out of here, Randon, because you have a podcast coming up. You want to let the people know what podcast you are going to be on so that they can tune in?
Yeah, we're doing Hockey Royalty. So it's for the LA Kings organization. We're actually doing an AHL pod for minor league hockey. So a little niche. But for the Ontario Reign, we're going to discuss some of the Olympics and stuff like that as well, where sadly Team USA lost in a shootout to Slovakia. And for all of you that don't know the rivalry, Team USA is playing Canada tonight for the women's hockey. That rivalry is like a heavyweight knockout fight. They like to bring it to each other, the best rivalry in women's hockey. So if you're interested in giving it a little try, that should be on TV sometime tonight. I forget which channel, but check the Olympic schedule and check it out.
Beautiful. I'm going to hit this quick. Joe Stoll with the super chat. Hopefully that cannon of an arm on Trey Lance will keep Kyle from shortening Debo and Trey's career. Cheers to the beard. Hey, I'm hoping that Trey Lance can take shots down the field. It makes Debo and Ayuk into the deep threat receivers that they should be, along with George Kittle at the tight end position. Joe, I'm there with you. I want to give you more time on this one. I'll let Randon say a quick word, but we got to get him out of here.
Agreed. Cheers.
Well, you know how it goes, 49er faithful. I will be back on the program tomorrow with the Sneakerhead call-in show. Look on my Twitter handle to find out when at the left shoe. It's not above me. That says Between Two Beards. I'm pointing to Between Two Beards. Until then, cheers, 49er faithful.